gonna try to get a pipe wrench in here on this axle. See if I can keep it from spinning. See if I can get a little bit more leverage. She's on there. You know what they say? If you can't beat them, heat them. Let's get the torch. Starting to move. Yes. So here's one of the spare discs I have for my Allis Chalmers disc Harrow, and then here's the disc that came off this International. It's got a square hole in it. This has got a round hole, and then I put this on top of here. These should roughly be about the same diameter from what I can tell. And you can see how much this one is worn down. It's worn down quite a bit. I don't know if I can get this round hole to fit over that square shaft. If I could, I think it would clamp all together. It still would work pretty much the same. And then I wouldn't have to buy discs. So I'll have to raise this up, see if it'll even fit. There's a pin you can put in here to lock it upward. I'm gonna see if I can get it in here. Oh, and it doesn't quite come up far enough. I don't know why this don't line up. It's like a quarter inch, half inch off. Well, I can't get the pin in to lock it in the upper position, so I'm just gonna stand in between the gangs here. If it goes down, I'll be in a safe zone. Oh, it does fit on. Actually, it fits on with plenty of room. That dwarfs those other discs. So if I decide to do this, I got to do both back gangs, I think. So I've got the disc lowered down. It's about 2 inches from the ground. It's not quite touching the ground. So the discs, I can still spin them if I want to. I went ahead and I put the nut back on the end. I'm going to see if I can get this axle to start sliding out. Well, you slide that axle out and then all of the discs and the spacers, they just fall out on the ground. And luckily I've still got that other gang, it's over there still put together, so I just got to make it match the other side. But I think it's pretty straightforward how it goes together. So I did end up calling a Case New Holland dealer to see if they had the correct discs that fit this. They had one. They said they hadn't sold them in 4 years. And instead of trying to go source discs, I'm just gonna go ahead and use the ones that I have. even though they got a round hole in them. I think once we put that all together, we'll tighten that nut down. It'll sandwich that all together, and it'll keep these from spinning on the shaft. I think they'll all kind of clamp in there and spin together once we're done. But this is the cheap route, right? This is free. It's just labor. Let's do it. So I did go ahead and I wire wheeled the threads on the end of this shaft, and then I wire wheeled the entire axle just to help this all slide together a little bit easier. But I think this ain't gonna be too bad. Discs are bigger. I think that'll be high enough. Yeah. Yep, I think so. All right, I got the axle started through there, so really all I got to do now is just put one of these spacers in between each disc as I continue to put the axle in further. So I've got 6 out of the 9 discs put on, and now is where it's getting tricky, is I've got to somehow wedge a disc in between these 2 spacers. And this spacer is part of the bearing that's in this assembly, so that's a fixed point. So I'm not sure how I'm going to get a disc to fit in there. I've thought about just taking this whole bracket loose and see if I can get that bearing to be able to slide over a little bit. Then that would give me enough gap to be able to get that disc put in there. Got that one off. There we go. We got lucky there. Go ahead and just get these nuts started back on, and then I can hit that with a hammer and try to loosen that up. All right, definitely got space in between there now. Probably about as good as I'm gonna get it. She spins. All right, we got one gang replaced here, and they all move together. Spins freely. So that's good. That wasn't as bad as what I thought it was gonna be. Which still would be easier with 2 people, no doubt. I'm gonna go ahead, these are way bigger than the rest of the discs, so I would like to at least get all the ones on the back the same size. So I'm gonna go ahead and take the other back gang apart, and we'll replace those, but the problem is I'm 1 disc short. So I'm gonna go through all the bad ones, I'm gonna pick out the one that looks the best, and then I'm gonna put it on the very inside next to the nut, and it'll be the easiest one to change later if I can find a replacement. I still think I can pull this out. Oh yeah. And that gets caught. So these pipe stands that I made for working on, you know, all the oil filled pipe that we made our fence out of, I used the discs for the base. So now I got to take all of these apart and steal these discs so that I can get this fixed. And I figure afterwards I'll probably try to pick out, you know, like some of these that are the best looking ones, I guess, and we'll mount them back on here so I can still have these stands. It's a good thing I bolted these together, didn't try to weld them together. All right, we got both gangs on the back replaced, and this inner one, I don't know if you can tell, but that inner one, that's one of the old ones, a little bit smaller diameter, but at least the back gangs are all roughly the same size now, so I think that'll help. It'll pull even, I think, as long as each row is the same size. The hitch on the front of here, you can adjust the angle of this hitch down here, and I think I can try to pitch this forward just slightly so that the front discs try to dig in or try to go a little bit lower. At least I think that's what that's supposed to do. Don't quote me on that, but I think we're to the point now where we can go out there and we can try to disc this up again. Well, now that I look at the tractor cab, I forgot how dusty this whole thing was. I tried blowing it off with the leaf blower and it got off the loose stuff, and this is what's still remaining. So it's maybe a mistake, but I think I'm gonna go ahead and just pull it over here and see if I can wash it off with the pressure washer. And we may have to try to dry it a little bit before we get out in that field because it's gonna be super dusty. It still hasn't rained since last time. Still no rain in the forecast, but I need to be able to see out these windows. Apparently they're just as dirty on the inside as they were on the outside. Well, I can definitely see out the windows better, and the tractor's mostly dry now, so let's go ahead and start discing this field. I just stopped so that I could move the camera, and I found this in the field. That's actually a piece. Yeah, it is definitely a piece from one of the discs. You can tell it's not broken today, so this probably broke off the other day when we were disking. And luckily I seen it and I picked it up. I mean, that could poke a hole through a tire for sure. But I guess that's the danger of running old discs. You get broken pieces in the field. Just got done plowing the field. I'm sorry, disking the field. And it's not perfect, but it's a lot better than it was. So the new discs, I was hoping they'd be all polished up. I did knock the rust off of them. It's only polished right on the tips. But the new discs did well. No problems there. You can see these other discs. We've ran them a couple times. They're shined up on the surface. I'm definitely glad that the discs that I had laying around, I was able to fit up on this and tighten everything up enough where they're pinched in there and they all turn together. And it seemed to work just fine, even though they're not discs for this International, it still worked. Now as we look at this other side, you can see, you know, these front discs, they're definitely going to need some attention. They're getting super thin and breaking and bending. So, but really, I don't think there's any broken. Look at this side. I mean, they're a little bit chipped up on the edges and stuff, but there's no, you know, big broken discs in it. All the broken ones were in the back, and at least we got those all replaced. All right, so next morning now, and today I'm gonna do a garden harvest out here before I turn the sprinkler system on out in the garden, get everything wet. Go ahead and see what we can collect out here. So Rebecca's out of tomatoes in the house. She loves eating these tomatoes fresh. You can see we've got a bunch of tomatoes in here. And then we also have a bunch of peppers as well. You can see like a yellow bell pepper right there. But that's mostly what we have is tomatoes and different types of peppers. The middle of the garden where we had planted it, late planted garden. We didn't plant this till like beginning of July. No fabric down, and the middle of the garden just got taken over by weeds. And we tried to weed it, to try to weed this entire middle part of the garden. You're talking several hours. So you do that a few times, and I mean, it just keeps coming back with a vengeance. Proved to be too much for us to keep up with everything that we got going on out here. So the middle of the garden's kind of a disaster. So most of the stuff we have is in the raised beds around the side, and we'll go ahead and get that as much as we can harvested today. And we'll start with this one right here because it's actually sticking outside of the fence. So I went ahead and brought out 2 5-gallon buckets. We'll see how full we can get these. So these tomatoes that we're picking right here, these are big boy tomatoes. Some are obviously a little bigger than others. These tomatoes right here, these are the Jetstar tomato. It's a little bit smaller than the big boy, at least here it is. But this is like the perfect size that Rebecca likes. All right, there's all the tomatoes that we harvested. So about almost 4 gallons. So you can see the corn behind me that we planted. This is glass gem corn. So it's branded as like a popcorn, but you can also grind it into cornmeal. It's a very colorful, shiny looking corn. And you can see it is, oh my goodness, probably 4 feet taller than I'm reaching. I mean, it's very tall. So in the center of the garden here, really the corn is the only thing that's done well out here. And we did put, you know, chicken manure on it to help fertilize it. Plus with the pond water, it's done really well. The ears are just starting to form. So here's an ear on the corn. Here's another ear right there. You see the silk on the corn. Here's another one. This one's real small. The silk's right there. So the corn is just starting to form, and it's the cobs are higher than any other corn I've grown. Most of the time they're like waist high, somewhere in there. A lot of these are head high where the cobs are going to be, and that's or the ears of corn are going to be. It's probably because it's so tall. But let's go ahead. We're going to go do bell peppers next, and I try to pick those when they're just starting to change color, or if they've already completely changed color, and they'll be more mature and sweeter at that stage. So these bell peppers right here, these are Sun Haven, and they're very pale green, at least for me. And then they start to turn yellow like that. And here's one that's completely turned yellow. Very pretty bell pepper. Yeah, look at this one. That's really nice pepper. Not finding very many red bell peppers, but here's one. That one right there is going to be a huge red bell pepper once it turns. There's another beautiful pepper right there. And there we are with the bell peppers. Probably about 3.5 gallons we got there. So the next thing to harvest is this banana pepper plant. Well, I just have one. I had a heck of a time finding one in late June. So let's pick this. I bet you we have quite a bit off of one plant. Look at those, nice and big. There we go, quite a few banana peppers off one plant. So right here, this solid wall right here is 3 tomato plants. They're San Marzino tomatoes, and Rebecca wanted to grow them. She said they're like the true Italian tomato, like a paste tomato. And it must be determinate because it's putting them all on at once. There hasn't been a ripe one yet. And hopefully these will all go ripe before it gets too cold this fall, and we'll have a bunch of tomatoes all at once that we'll have to process and get put away. It's hard to see in here, but this is a jalapeno plant full of jalapenos. We've been eating these as jalapeno poppers. All right, that bucket's full, so I think I'll start putting jalapenos on top of these tomatoes. So we still have a bunch of Anaheim chili peppers to be able to harvest. Just picked one so I can make breakfast burritos out of that. And then I'll harvest those another day. There's also some serranos and some other hot peppers in there as well. Well, let's go ahead. We'll get the sprinkler pump turned on and get the garden watered. I think that's why some of them plants were looking kind of puny. Those raised beds dry out, and it is dry. We haven't had rain in a couple weeks, or maybe 3 weeks. It's been a while. So before I start this pump up, I'm gonna go ahead and clean the filter on it. Yep, a little bit of dirt in there, muck. So here's the screen that protects the pump, but if you look inside of it, you probably can't. The inside's what ends up getting really mucked up and dirty, so let's go spray this out. All right, she's all clean now. I don't know if you can tell it or not, but it's clean. So this just keeps sediment from going through the pump. The pump can't handle, you know, like sand or dirt or anything going through it. It'll wear the pump out quicker. So go ahead and turn this garden hose back on. The water will come down from the garden. It'll re-prime the pump. And then I go ahead and turn it on. All right, the sprinkler's going, and it just reaches the corners of the garden. So later today or tomorrow, I'm gonna can up these banana peppers and the jalapeno peppers. The bell peppers we'll slice up or dice up, and we will freeze those. If I had a freeze dryer, I'd probably try freeze drying the bell peppers to see how that worked. And then the tomatoes, since they're slicing tomatoes, we'll probably just run those through our little processing thing and turn them into tomato sauce. But some of them aren't as ripe as I'd want them to be anyway, so we'll probably let them lay out for like another 4 or 5 days just to ripen a little bit more before we process them. But not a bad little harvest from the garden today. So I'm looking at the forecast here, and it has changed a little bit. So Friday, they're now calling for a 60% chance of a 1/2 inch of rain. So is that enough to go ahead and put grass seed down? I don't know. We'll go ahead. We'll just keep an eye on this. So Thursday we may plant grass, but I feel like there's still some more stuff I need to do to prep this field. So one, I feel like the middle of the field still, the grass was really thick in there. I feel like it's not worked up enough still. So I need to, I think, go over at least the middle of this area one more time with the disc harrow. And then I think I want to go over it with a drag and just drag this entire field, try to smooth everything out so we have a nice smooth pasture when we're done. And then I also may put down just a little bit of nitrogen fertilizer just to help the grass as it gets growing. So I need to try to do all those things in the next 3 days if we're going to try to get this planted. But I think that wraps up this video. We're going to keep our fingers crossed for rain, and hopefully we can get this all planted soon and we have a nice pasture to graze next year. So hope you guys have a great day. I'll see you next time.